Right. Welcome, everyone. So this is April 8th, and it's snowing out, 2025. So thank you for attending. Let's see, the first order of business I have on here is minutes. So I've passed those out to budget committee members. If you want to take those for a moment.
Make a motion, we accept the minutes as written.
Seconded.
Any discussion? All in favor? Right. So let's see, that's minutes. So. Yeah. Okay, I have old business, and what I did is just I took notes of the different areas that we were still going to follow up on. So I will pose my questions to Shannon. Do we have any additional updates on general administration, or should we push those?
I would still push those, but I can sit there and say that I did talk with our auditor on Thursday. They did suggest regarding the checks and balances portion to hire someone separate. And so that's something that we're going to continue having a conversation about, I think, what that looks like in the office
So
structure.
like a separate
a
bookkeeper
treasurer.
from treasurer?
Yeah.
Okay,
Or a bookkeeper, excuse me, thank you.
okay.
So that's something that we're discussing, I think, with the select board.
Mhm,
So still at this time, I would like to put
mhm.
that later.
All right. Okay, any other items on that? I think we were still gonna wait for health insurance rates a
Yep.
little bit. And then I just put a couple notes. And the income protection plan, that would be once we get a little bit more information on the benefit package for possible
And
new town manager.
I did get updated numbers for the code enforcement officer.
Oh, okay.
It wasn't off by much. And so it was actually cheaper, and we'll notice that when we discuss the transfer station as well. So for the code enforcement officer, it was at 45,329. It's actually 45,189.
Okay.
For salaries.
Great.
Okay.
So nothing more under assessing.
Correct.
Then, okay, we got the code enforcement.
One second, is that, that's been updated in here automatically, the code, Shannon, or no?
Is that for today's, is that in here?
Yeah, today's packet,
If it shows.
I didn't, look, I was just. a little bit too deep.
Is this the package
Those are
for today?
extras.
Oh, okay.
Like for one.
Wouldn't be, because we aren't covering that area.
Right.
Okay,
I don't
that's
have that
fine.
in here for
Mhm.
today.
No, that's fine, that's good.
Yeah.
Thanks.
And
So-
Shannon, I'm sorry,
Mhm.
was that a reduction from what you had assumed or a reduction from
Yes.
current year?
No, that was a reduction from what I had assumed.
Okay.
Oh,
So it was just
okay.
updating the numbers. It was only, wasn't off by too much.
All right. And then we still had an outstanding question about contingency, I just wrote it down so we'd have it out there. The question was whether or not we would use the contingency account to put any unbudgeted vacation liability. They want to have that on the budget. In the past, it's not been in the budget. Any other old business topics that folks have? Okay. Then I'll get on to new business, and I'd just like to make a little change in the schedule. So we do have Jennifer here from Friends of Cobussy Watershed, so thought I'd give you the floor. So where you don't have to go through our entire meeting.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much for having me. I'm actually here with a representative from Barry Dexter Wilson Watershed Association as well. So we're very, very grateful for our partnership with our lake associations across the Cobbossee watershed and our partnerships with the towns across the watershed as well, including Wayne, Maine. So for this year, we do have several successes from 2024. We also have several challenges moving into 2025 as well. So we are hiring a staff of 30 courtesy boat inspectors. So those inspectors work with our preventative measures for aquatic invasive species, preventing spread and introduction into water bodies, which is especially important for our uninfested water bodies such as Barry Dexter and Wilson ponds. So these CBIs will be working on 10 public boat launches across the watershed, including at Wilson Public Boat Launch. They'll be working at Wilson Public Boat Launch on the weekends. So that is from 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. Saturdays and Sundays from Memorial Day weekend to Labor Day weekends. We also have a crew of surveyors, plant surveyors as well, and a crew of plant control crew members. So our surveyors work with our early detection efforts, again, which is especially important on our uninfested water bodies such as Barry Dexter and Wilson ponds. So they survey in partnership with the volunteer crew that's a part of Barry Dexter Wilson Watershed Association. And we do survey Barry Dexter and Wilson in addition to several other water bodies across our watershed. And since Barry Dexter Wilson is known to be uninfested, we search, we make sure that there are just native plants that we're finding. If we do find anything suspicious, we assess that further and see if management does need to take place so that we can hopefully control that infestation before it becomes established on a water body. So we have a couple of different survey teams. We have a Cobbossee Lake survey team since that is our largest water body, and we do have some known infestations on that water body. We also have a roaming plant survey team that's about 6 surveyors with a survey lead that we are hiring for. And we luckily in Wayne, we don't have any infested water bodies, which is really, really great, but we do have some infestations pretty close by. So we have 4 known aquatic invasive species in our watershed moving into 2025. One of them is actually brand new to our watershed, unfortunately. So we are working to control and prevent the spread of variable leaf milfoil, Eurasian water milfoil, European frogbit, and swollen bladderwort. So I did leave an info sheet that also showcases those 4 invasive species. So swollen bladderwort was discovered at the in July in 2024 on Pleasant Pond. So I know that that's near the southern end of our watershed, but still something that we are assessing through survey efforts. And we are going to work with the Department of Environmental Protection for management of that species so that we don't see it near our northern end of the watershed or anywhere else in the watershed, hopefully. So of course, we have quite a bit of work to do moving into 2025. We did request a small increase from last year. So last year we requested $1,500. This year we're requesting $1,800. So again, a very small increase. All that money is going directly back to the work for prevention and early detection efforts on Barry Dexter Wilson ponds. And yeah, so that's kind of what things are looking like moving forward. The increase is requested for the scope of work that we have in 2025 with the new infestation that we just did discover, and also due to rising costs from inflation and just a rising cost for our paid staff. Does anybody have any questions?
Thank you very much for
Very
that.
complete. Thank you.
Absolutely.
Thank you for the work.
Thank you.
Yes, much appreciated. I can see that we've got that 1,800 right now in that line. So,
It's in our line.
yeah, we're, yeah,
Thank you.
we're doing that adjustments. Yeah. All right, shall we get back to the first item under new business? Thank you again. I really appreciate it. So under public safety, I think we have, starting with the fire department, which I believe is on the first page that was here. Yeah.
Yep, so they have the page numbers in the upper right-hand corner.
Oh.
I do have a couple of extras if anyone would like to look at them. If we don't have a lot. I've got 2 extras here. And so looking on page 6, there were no changes to any of the stipends. or operations, I'm talking with the chief of the fire department. The only big deduction you'd see would be the 10,000 under the fire equipment, and so that dropped it by about 38%.
Was
Oh,
the
it's-
reason behind that?
We
Uh,
had an increase last year. right?
Yes, I think there was some funding
pretty
for some
substantial.
equipment last year, so he's
Mhm.
just dropping it back down.
Okay,
SCBA gear, I think it was.
that we talked about, right?
Mhm.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Great.
And regarding this, at some point, I'm gonna start developing a capital improvements plan, and we'll probably talk about that with capital transfers in our next meeting. But looking at the 5 to 10 year plans, some of the goals that the fire department is looking at. The fire truck, they're looking at a tanker pumper and getting a specifics for a 1,500 gallon and auctioning off their 1987 truck. They are hoping in about 5 to 10 years, they could start looking at a fire station. So that'll be a consideration for capital improvements, similar to a Fayette or Manchester size station. And then also just understanding, culverts, but that's a roads thing. So that was just in our conversation.
Do you know how much they have in the, in their bank account right now for the
Fire truck reserve.
fire
account.
truck reserve?
I believe it was 75,000. They added last year. I'd have to get back to you exactly on the full
Yeah.
amount.
Didn't know. All right, does anybody have any questions about fire departments?
Could you just say again, that you mentioned 2 fire departments that you thought,
Fayette and Manchester
okay,
were the 2 that they
Hmm.
modeled.
Yeah.
Are modeling after.
Okay.
And then next page.
Yeah, animal control.
Yeah, so, just kind of kept it at the cost of living adjustment of 2.48% on here, going up from 3,220 up to 3,300 for this year. Maintaining the same stipend as, budgeted in 2025. Travel expenses, just going off the history of it and what's already been, what's been expended so far this year. Only $194 out of the 1,400 that was budgeted. So I just dropped that down to about 1,200. Other than that, no other change.
No increase from the Humane Society. I know they charge.
I haven't seen anything in my paperwork, but I'll follow up on that.
23.
It might be per drop off too. I know there's a lot of.
I can't remember how that works.
Yeah.
Okay.
I can always. I don't think I have a note on that in here.
And last year, Shannon, we had a communication from the animal control officer asking for an increase. We didn't receive anything like that this year.
I haven't received anything yet.
Okay.
do you remember what we did last year?
We split the difference. So
Oh,
We
that's
did split the
right.
difference,
She had asked for this much, and we
but didn't come back.
Right. No, he was satisfied last year.
Mhm. Oh, okay. Any other questions for Shannon on animal control? Okay. And then public safety.
Oh, so I meant to make a copy of this for everybody. For under public safety, you'll see the biggest changes are definitely down under the fire and EMS dispatch. And that was for 134% or an increase from 4,652 up to 10,914. That is because what they're doing this year between both ambulance and the rural, the fire EMS dispatch is that they are including the unrecoverables. So when the ambulance gets sent out to a certain location, if they don't transport to the hospital, they cannot recoup any costs that are associated with any of that. So they basically have to write it off. And now, so just to be more equitable to the 7 different communities that they're serving, they did an allocation broken down by 50% per capita and 50% usage. So that's how they came up with their allocations, and I have a chart here I can pass around to you. If you have any questions on any of that. Pardon some of my notes.
The review, how do we fit in just overall? Are we?
So we're among the lowest. I would say second to,
Okay.
what was it, Fayette?
Oh,
So Fayette had the lowest number, as far as usage. Vienna, and then
Mhm.
Fayette, and then Wayne. but you can take a look. So
Hmm.
that's where they come up with some of those numbers. But it's an increase for ambulance from 28,399 up to 32,068. So roughly about a $4,000 increase there.
Hmm.
And then for the fire and EMS dispatch, roughly from 4652 up to 10,914. So about a $6,300 difference.
Not to interrupt, Shannon, was
Mhm.
Winthrop kind of eating this before then, I would say, by the look of it? right?
Yes, they were.
Okay.
Mhm.
I think they came in and had a presentation.
You did.
Not last year, was it the
2
year
years,
before?
2 years.
Yeah. Mhm.
So about 14,000 between those two. And then looking at the PSAP dispatching, that was just an increase of about $2,300. So that is just looking at the updated contract, and I believe that is a 2-year contract. And we'll get updated numbers on that in 2026 for 2027.
And what is PSAP?
That is the dispatching center. Let me see if I
Used to be
have,
like Skowhegan. just like-
yeah, it's
Yeah,
Androscoggin County out of
Oh.
Auburn.
We had to figure out where we were going someplace new last, 2 years ago as well.
Yeah, so
Okay.
basically just their communications dispatch that
Okay.
Winthrop, I think, also goes through, and so they have a contract.
When you dial 911, that's where it goes.
Yes, yeah, and then it gets
Certain-
forwarded,
right.
and then we get dispatched out through there.
Yeah, there was something, a couple select board meetings ago in which somebody did a presentation. Is that anything that's gonna be affecting the public safety budget at all?
Mm.
I think it was talking about were there some doctors or providers that were going in?
Oh, so that you're talking about Timothy Pay, and he
Could
was
be.
through the MD3 program, and that was a
Mhm.
county level service.
Oh,
I
okay.
believe that, I think Lloyd mentioned it in the last meeting, that that's actually a program that they're removing this year.
Oh,
But they had just put it into place, I think, about 2 years ago, and they were just trying to expand, physician's assistants around in rural areas, so that way they would have a faster response and have a higher rate of helping people.
mhm.
But I think just the costs of everything at the county level right now, I think that's a program that they may be taking out.
All right. So in the public safety section is also utilities, some streetlights. Is that the,
That's-
Oh,
is
because
that us?
streetlights are considered a safety.
they are for that? And that reflects, didn't we have some changes to?
Well, we changed years back, we switched the bulbs and things. and
Oh, okay.
It was a big savings, but hasn't been much change since.
Oh, okay.
I think there will also be some other electricity, I think, for under roads. And you'll see under anything with electricity, it's gone up significantly this year.
Mhm.
So just preparing for that for next year.
So in that line item where it says utilities, that just means the electric.
Yes, the
Yeah, like-
streetlights.
Yes, the streetlights. Okay. Any additional comments or questions about the public safety? Are there any changes that you expect before this budget gets finalized?
I haven't heard, I think that there was some contract somewhere from the sheriff's department, and I do need to follow up on that
Okay.
one. But I haven't seen anything from them yet. And other than that, I'm not expecting anything else.
Okay, so may have a sheriff department follow up.
Yep.
Okay. Okay. Look like we're moving along. Health and Human Services, is that,
I don't know what that really included, to be honest.
it might have, was it under? I'm just wondering if when we had
Control.
the
That's kind of-
couple. When we
Oh, yeah.
had the last meeting, might it have been under part of that? So I thought we skipped something on the last
I was looking
meeting.
at some previous years, and that was listed as Health and Human Services. I'm not sure if that would be social services. We have
Yeah.
community services and social services, but I consider that to be more of an outside organization.
Mhm.
And so I figured that might fall under the next meeting with outside agencies.
Okay.
Oh, okay. yeah,
But they are included in your packet under page 19 if you wanted to, like you saw Friends of Wacomico Watershed under Department 112, section 1092. And so that was just highlighting some of that. But I didn't know if there was any particular outside agencies that you'd like to have a presentation from as well, where you can invite them in. And then while we're on this topic, Carol Ladd did send me an email regarding the maintenance budget for the Ladd Recreation Center Court project to include a minimum of about $25,000 over the next 5 years, or setting aside about a maintenance budget of about 5,000. And so for that, it would be looking at doing some pressure washing and any painting. And I don't know if you want to address any of that, Carol, or talk
I
about it.
can just briefly say that, when I talked to the contractor, he said that, and I asked, what do we need to do long term? And he said within 5 to 8 years, repaint and seal and coat, just to keep it up. And that's just a start at having a budget for that. It's not gonna cover everything. We don't know exactly when that would happen, but it's starting a budget. I learned that from you, David, that you need to, with the roads budget, you have to
Put
think
money away.
ahead and start
Mhm.
a fund so that when the time comes, we're ready to maintain.
So would that be reserve, would that be another reserve that we're starting?
I would-
A reserve for.
Yeah.
Would have
I
to
would
be a
assume so.
capital reserve account.
Yeah.
So
If
so it's
the
a new,
company
so
would
it's a new
accumulate,
capital
It would have to
reserve.
be, it
account.
would have to be.
Mhm.
Unless you're asking for individual maintenance, such as like trash cans or just,
Something that would be expended during the year.
right,
Right.
is that
This
something
sounds like
that?
it wouldn't be if it's over 5
You-
to 8 year.
You want to start saving up money in the kitty for when we actually have to do this, is that
Right.
correct?
Yeah.
Two things,
Okay,
yeah. I
yeah,
don't
so
know
that
if
would
we
be
wanna
capital reserve
actually
account.
earmark it exactly for the painting, but if there are things that need doing. Like
Right.
that, yes, if
But-
the painting is that's gonna be an expensive item, so.
But also, Carol, if there is, if we have town courts and they require work on them throughout the year, some sort of cleaning, whatever, that should be included in the budget, because we don't have anything in there for that. Is that fair?
Well, we have mowing here
Yeah.
somewhere, right? These things ought to be kind of grouped together in a proper location. I don't know if we have it in this packet at all, but,
Are you
Yeah.
talking about for mowing?
right,
So the way the mowing's been done in the previous years, and the way I just drew up the most recent contract, so kind of follow along with that,
Mhm.
is, the contract for mowing was broken down into public parks, the Lab Recreation Center, public historical buildings, and I think fire department. And so each of those from the contract are allocated into different line items. So
Mhm.
under Department 112 Recreation, Section 0371 Lad Mowing, that is the Lad Recreation portion that they bid on
right.
for that year. So I will be updating that actually, now that I see that.
Mhm.
Because those are gonna be
Contracts.
yes, those are
Yes.
contracts that we actually just signed this past week
Mhm.
and just got the final documentation for. And then under operating expense up above 0215 or 0290, that might be a line that you'd want to look at for any kind of
Maintenance
ongoing
repairs.
maintenance.
Right,
And so under the lab operational expenses, that increased from 0, I think was budgeted last year, back up to 4,300 from previous years.
right. I guess my question is, does the town want to put a line item in it for a capital down the road payment, let's say, right? For something that, I mean, we have to look at all townspeople. Okay, now if everybody can come and play. What kind of turnout do we have? Do we have everybody in town participating? Should this be something that should be done by a volunteer or a can or something? When you come to play, you pay a nominal fee for maintenance down the road. I mean, is this a direction we want to start down? Because if we start doing the courts here, well, the ball field at the school needs work and it can go on and on. So, are we starting to open Pandora's box?
Well,
I think if we have a park and we have parks maintenance, seems like that would be part of maintaining the park. And I understand only some people may use it, but I'm pretty healthy and I don't like paying for ambulances.
Okay. No, I'm just throwing it out there because we have to look at all sides of the coin. You can't just look at one side.
I've wondered if,
Yeah.
in a bigger way, we could implement a program like that where people are offered the opportunity to make a particular donation. And I don't mean to undercut the Lad Center, the Lad,
Or the park, you know?
yeah, but I don't mean to undercut the library trying to do their fundraising. But if somebody said, yeah, I really like the library, and I can't tell you what to do with my taxes, but I'm gonna make an additional contribution to the library, or I'm gonna make an additional contribution to the tennis courts. And I think if we encourage that, there might be a way to do the bookkeeping that was illuminating.
Part of accepting the grant from the Land and Water Conservation Fund is we agreed as a town that we were gonna make sure that these courts were maintained into the future, so. I
That was a
believe it's
document that was signed by the town
Yeah.
board or the rec board.
No,
No,
no.
by the
Town.
town, yeah,
Yeah,
cause it was the
the-
town that got the grant.
The tennis court has nothing to do with the Lad Rec Center, except its location. Except its location is, I mean, the Lad Rec Center is this building.
Oh,
It's located in the park up there.
Could we just say, if you're gonna say tennis, it's gotta be tennis and pickle?
Well,
Tennis and
for-
pickleball.
I'm old and I may forget, so it's I'll just say
Sorry.
courts or I may say tennis court.
Courts
Y'all
is
know what I
fine.
mean.
net games.
Now,
Yeah.
on the donations is a great idea. I've been doing a fair amount of research regarding town, lad rec program. That interface. And there are rules in a statute on how a town can accept donations. I suggest we're not doing it correctly. But to do it correctly, about one of the only things that you can accept a gift without town meeting action
Mhm.
is we can accept a gift to supplement an existing budget appropriation and apply it against that. So if you want to accept and do it correctly, if you want to accept gifts for aging at home, for example, we should have an aging at home appropriation somewhere. Maybe it starts with $300 or whatever, but then when people contribute, then the select board says they have a motion, a gift has been offered to augment this budget item, move we accept it, we accept it. And that would go for the tennis courts, that might go for the farmer's market. If we want to do it correctly. That would go for the Lad Center, however that ends up being worked out, the Lad Center programs.
And I believe that's one of the warrant articles, when we get to town meeting, right, that we do
Well,
allow the town to accept gifts and grants and other things on behalf.
But
of-
what Henry's saying is we're allowed to accept them, but we have to have a place to put them.
yeah, and
In other words, otherwise they go into the.
I suggest that we need to check with our council about that warrant article, because I'm not too sure that it does anything. But that's,
But neither here nor there, Henry, there's no place to put it if we get it now.
well, that article says we can put it anywhere we please. That article
Right.
says we can do the appropriation.
But you're saying we just need to put it where it belongs and then bring it back out from there.
I'm saying there's a statute that the only thing it allows the select board to accept, there are two things, as near as I can tell. Donations for an existing appropriation. That's in the budget. And there's something about if we somehow come across forfeit property from a drug bust, we get the select board can accept that also, but I
And
don't expect that's gonna happen.
grant money.
Grant money, yeah.
too.
but-
Grant monies, yeah.
But, that's just for what it's worth. We can do it or not do it.
It'll be helpful to know how much specificity needs to be in that appropriation language.
Yes, sir.
For example, I mean, we appropriate $4,300 a year from the town to the Lad Center to support its programs. If someone wants to make a charitable
Additional.
donation to the Lad Center for a specific purpose for a Lad Center, can that fall within that statutory language?
But it should go into that account, Eric, that same account,
I would
not,
suggest-
not into the general
Eric,
account.
Eric, I
Let's
would
get the answer to
suggest,
this question.
I would suggest for it to work. That, for example, the Lad Center revenues, the contributions by the Lad family, the Lad Charitable Corporation. those, those should be used to supplement that LAD center appropriation, and there should be a motion by us to accept that and apply it to that appropriation.
Yeah, I agree.
Now, if it's a conditional gift for a specific purpose, I would suggest that that has to be approved by town meeting. But that's, I think that's what the law says.
And I can see that in the warrant articles, in this particular year, it was Article 7. And all of the warrant articles, I know they go to the town attorney for review before the town meeting. And it did talk about the town authorizing the board to accept grants and gifts on such terms and conditions as the board deems appropriately, and then applying those gifts and grants along with any fees to categories deemed appropriate by the board. And it talks about grants for capital projects and operations, gifts and donations for capital projects and operations, building permits, plumbing fees, aging at home for operations.
The
so-
warrant article talks
The
about,
one article
Yeah.
does, but there's no place to put it.
7 doesn't. Does it talk about 18 homes on
Yes,
Article
it-
7?
Yeah, this one is from a couple years
Oh,
ago,
okay,
so,
the one we did last year doesn't.
yeah, this one's 2020.
But neither here nor there, Eric, we still need a place to put it when we do get it, when it comes in. And it'll be appropriate to have it, if it comes in for the farmer's market, it should go back out to the farmer's
Yeah,
market.
The problem that, and Henry and I are very familiar with this issue with the LAD Center. is There's not a whole separate set of accounts that covers everything for the LAD Center. There's
But we do have a line at least.
a line, yes.
And I suggest we need to get advice on accepting gifts. That's all I'll say.
Hey, getting back to the tennis court maintenance
Yeah.
fund, I would say, irrespective of the obligation we have under the grant
Mhm.
that the town accepted. I think it's just prudent management. If you're gonna
Yeah.
invest that much money into
To
the
take
tennis
care of
court, to take care of it. Otherwise, we're gonna be doing this all again in 10 years.
And there probably wouldn't be enough coming in from donations to meet it, so, but we'll start small. And doesn't have to be done tomorrow. So it's a good thing.
So is the recommendation to have a line added to capital?
I think that's the only way we can accept it,
Mhm.
I believe that's what
because
you,
otherwise
think
it all
that's what
gets,
You'd have to expense it.
I think that's what you're talking about, because if you, if you just put it in parks or put it under maintenance and you don't spend it, it's gonna drop out at the end of the year. So you need to put it in a capital reserve.
I think it needs to go into a capital reserve, and I think we should put a little in every year so that by the time we can get to that.
we do have an unfunded line called Lad Recreation Center Improvements. We could use that line, it's already
Page
there,
81,
17.
17.
But it's not the Land Recreation Center, it's the town of Wayne Forts project.
Okay,
It should be distinguished.
let's get rid of that, well, we can't, because there's money carried over there.
17.
Carol, it would be helpful. And I don't know if you see something.
I didn't have.
I got it.
Our contract with the help us
Somebody
with it,
mentioned 19.
But just to have an
Yeah,
I
estimate,
went from 16.
how much is it gonna cost us to
Yeah,
do
I got
annual
you.
power washing?
We don't have.
How much is it gonna
Yeah, we
cost
don't
to
have the
do
whole-
repainting,
Maybe we
sealing,
can get that.
and what frequencies, just so we know how much money we should be putting aside.
$28,000.
I know, looking back on it, if I had all the binders and everything, 10 of them, 5 for select board, 5 for the budget committee,
For
kind of
resealing.
go through
For
everything.
recoding. There may be
Binders.
additional.
But you can
costs
add a-
for,
Guess we're gonna have to add another line.
Replacement.
I'd like to get rid of that one, but we'd lose the history if we got rid of it. Or rename it.
Are you
Yes.
talking about the
Maybe
5243 under the capital reserve?
That's correct.
Yeah.
Okay,
But
I
we
mean-
can't, she's absolutely right, if it's, I didn't realize that, I thought those were the Lad Center
Yeah.
owned the courts, I didn't know Town of Wayne owned them too.
Lad Recreation Center improvements, yeah.
So the town
Yeah,
meetings,
but
everything.
we're talking about.
outside.
Outside, they got it inside.
18th and inside.
And
So you'd
the
start at
estimate is
5293
that
or whatever, right?
Right.
And it would be Town of Wayne
The estimate is
Courts.
that it would be
Okay, guys, we're having 3
Yeah.
different conversations. Can we stick on one? And Eric had the floor at the time, so.
Yeah, I was trying to get a sense of how much money we should be putting aside
Yeah.
in this capital reserve fund, and it sounds like we need to have something on the order of about $30,000 every 8 years
Correct.
Mhm.
to take care of resealing it, recoding it.
So would that be
So that
about,
5,000 is a pretty round number.
yeah,
Yeah, and that will take care of, not, there are, in addition to the recoding costs, there may be additional costs to cover the costs for net deterioration and replacement.
mhm.
And other costs that may be accrued related to paint required to, and repairs for the benches, for example. There are other maintenance costs that could accrue in addition to the recoating and repainting and power washing costs that come into play for the maintenance costs. So in addition to the $25,000 costs for the recoating and resealing and power washing for the surface, there are some additional costs. So it is prudent to assume that there are, in addition to the $25,000 cost, adding an additional $5,000 and approximately an additional 3 years is reasonable.
So if we did $5,000 a year after 8 years, that would be $40,000.
So we would be in
So
that,
that would be
we'd
in
be in
that-
that
That would be
ballpark.
prudent.
In that
Can I
ballpark.
ask a question?
Yeah.
If there are donations that come in, once the courts are done, could
Mhm.
that money go in, should that money go into that same account? And be used for other court expenses?
Are donations able to go to a capital account? That would be,
I think it can, it's a budget item,
Okay.
it's augmenting, it's supplementing a budget, I think it's
so it
supplementing.
would go directly in.
It would go directly in and then.
If it was
should something
they had to have to be
needed-
designated directly for that. I'm sure the same thing with a fire truck. I mean, if somebody wants to donate towards the fire truck fund,
So,
you
yeah,
aren't gonna put it in the operating budget, you're gonna put it in the capital budget, because
Right.
it'll hold it.
and,
So-
but I think what you're thinking of is the special revenue fund, because the Lad Center stuff right now for the court project is in a special revenue fund that's not in the
Budget.
capital and it's not in the town budget. It's kind of separate. So that's where the 40,000 that the town voted in a couple years ago, it went over into the special revenue fund, not a capital reserve fund. I think that's what you were. asking.
That 40,000 is right here in this 5243. Lad Rec said an improvement was the 40,000.
No, that wasn't.
That wasn't the
No.
41,000? Where'd that go then?
I think that was something else. I'm not sure.
Were you looking at it?
Page 17.
What about the rec center did donate $1,000 specifically to this, or is that in that? other
It might have been,
section?
it might be in that line, because it was spent in 2024, it went to zero. So it tells me it was money that came in and then was dispersed. So I would assume that was it, but anyway, that fund is, that line's gone now anyway, or it's unfunded. But you're saying start a new line with town courts. Town courts, right?
Yeah.
And then you'd put the 5,000 in town courts in.
For capital reserve account for
Yeah.
town courts.
Okay.
Mhm.
Need another fund for- So there needs to be another fund then for donations that will.
No, that could go in. If you send a donation, I'd like to make a donation to town courts, that's where it goes.
Okay.
Earmark.
And then if we want to use that to make a sign,
You go to the board, they're the ones that can expend money out of the capital account would be the Board of Selectmen.
is that the way we should be doing it then?
Yeah, that's the best way to do it.
I think the sign is still kind of under the project, right? Because there's certain things we have to do to finish out that land and water
Mhm.
conservation fund. And all of that is sitting in that special revenue fund. And when everything gets paid out, there'll be some, I believe there's still expected to be some money left over there. So then would that then go to the select board to determine if that money then moves over into the reserve fund for that? It's Still learning.
I don't believe the select board can take money from an operating account and move it into the reserve fund. That's
No,
something
they
for the
got that.
town. That's the town has.
But
to
they
do
can go
that.
the other way. They can go from the.
Yeah.
Well,
capital
if
fund.
it's the proper, you can charge, if it's the proper charge to the reserve account, then you just, you do the expense and you charge it to the reserve account. You pay the bill and charge the reserve account if it's proper for the reserve. If you have annual maintenance, I think you probably should budget for annual maintenance in your parks budget. And then if that money isn't used, it just falls back out.
But what we're saying here, Henry, is this is bigger than annual maintenance.
Yeah.
This
Yes,
is, we're
yes,
trying to build for a
yes.
big project.
Right.
yes, sir, but we also have nothing in the budget for annual maintenance for these courts.
But
And-
as she said, over 8 years, we're gonna have extra money that could come out of there.
Yeah,
Okay,
but
but-
the annual.
But you're gonna
is
have to,
be
you're
done.
gonna have to do something this year,
And next year.
I
and the
assume.
year after.
What do you have to do every year? The course that you have to do every year?
Well, you-
You know, I don't know, we don't know yet, maybe we'll have to, if the leaves off the court, we may have to power wash it May. It all depends on the wear and tear, but it's made well, it's gonna have good drainage, so we really don't know exactly what we're gonna have to do.
It also could
But-
come out of Lad Center mowing if we increase that.
Right, if they weed whack responsibly around there and have that. But the other question is, if people donate, they're gonna be donating tax deductible to the court project.
Mhm.
And that they're gonna, people that donate are gonna expect that that money is used for that. So where does that get put so that it stays with the courts?
Where it has
How
been
could
put
they
is
make
it
it
has been
happen?
put in a special revenue fund
Anytime you do.
that we
donate
had
to a town, it's
expenses
taxed
for that.
To the town of
Yeah, it's
Wayne.
like, a
So I-
charity- it's like the donating to
Same thing,
charity,
charity.
just like a charity.
It's gonna be dedicated.
Here's what the law says. The municipal officers may accept a donation of money to the municipality to supplement a specific appropriation already made, to reduce the tax assessment, to endow a municipal education foundation, or to reduce permanent debt. I suggest this is the only thing that the select board can accept. All other gifts are town meeting issues, but we need to check that out and with our council.
With council.
So if you have I think the capital reserve for court, whatever we call that, seems that would be a specific appropriation already made. And if somebody, once it's in the budget, and if somebody says, here, I want to give you $500 to supplement the existing appropriation for the capital fund for the courts, then I believe the select board can take that and put it in there.
So, the question that I have is, there's this much money. Red wants to give $500. Can we be sure that if the $500 isn't needed that year, that Fred's money will still be there and.
It's a
Fred's
capital
money-
account. It
Yeah, if
says.
Fred's money goes to a capital reserve account,
Yeah.
that will happen. If Fred's money goes to an operating account, at the end of the year, it's gonna fall out of the system.
Okay, that's what I have to.
I think.
So that, to answer your
I
question,
think
Carol, that
everything
would
I
be
say
the
is
best
I
way of
think.
doing it then.
Yeah.
And if they specify town courts, that's where it goes.
And I believe, if I may comment, that these expenses are primarily capital expenses. They're to maintain the court's operating ability, but they are capital expenses for recoding and for replacement of the nets and for probably replacement and recoding of the benches, for example. The maintenance of like the weed whacking around, I think those expenses are already covered by costs that you subsumed under line items.
Yeah, like the Lad Center mowing and stuff, yeah.
Yeah, and I don't know that we should assume that we will be flooded with donations.
Shannon just let a contract for Last Center mowing, and it has a specification, and it says what the guy's gonna do.
Mhm.
And I don't think that includes sweeping the tennis courts and picking up the trash. And so, if the tennis
Right.
courts need to be swept and the trash needs to pick up, the budget needs to have money for that.
We do have a line, maintenance and repairs, Henry,
Okay,
Mhm.
right there, maintenance repairs.
that's,
So there is a line for it.
Mhm.
Instead of getting carried away with too many lines.
well, that's fine, but the money
We
to
have-
take care of the courts needs to go in there. Yeah.
Okay.
So I guess I need one more answer. If somebody wants to make a donation, say somebody does want to donate $5,000 or $500, can we say, if you give this money and earmark it for.
Town
LLC,
courts,
town
capital.
courts,
Reserve fund.
okay,
Once we have that fund established.
Yes,
What's the other fund say?
and it'll stay there, and if we need money for things before,
You go to the board. They're the only ones that can take the money out.
okay, so we would need a budget for things, incidentals, or,
Incidentals are maintenance that we were talking about.
Yeah, I
like
think that-
Incidentals. And everything else is, I think you
Yeah.
listed about everything else is major.
So
Great.
So
But-
is there
but they-
anything else you were thinking of?
Good.
well, I was thinking if somebody wants to buy 2 brooms and, or, I mean, you know, little things like that, if there's money there to do those things.
there is an appropriation for maintenance and repairs under recreation. So
yes.
I think there's a place to put it.
Yeah, and what we call it is not as important as how much we fund it with.
Right.
And so I think the issue is the amount of money that's suggested for maintenance and repairs, did it consider the additional burden of these courts?
We haven't gotten there yet.
Okay, that's good.
Okay, move on. You
So
want
do
a
we
motion to, do you need a motion, everything to do that, or is it, that's up to the town to do
So
that?
we're also gonna go over capital reserves, I think, in the next meeting.
Yes,
And so I can include that under there.
Okay.
I'm realizing we're gonna have a bunch of things on the next meeting as well.
okay.
Yeah.
But while we're at Health and Human Services, it was brought to my attention, general assistance, which you don't have a page for, would fall under the Health and Human Services, I believe. And so that would include, general assistance, and then under our general assistance, we have aging at home. But the only thing for aging at home, which like I mentioned, it's not in your packet for today. But it was just a 2.5% increase on the salary for the aging at home coordinator. And then for general assistance, it was actually under budgeted this year. So it was set for 1,000 in the 2025 budget and 3,939 under budget. So that means $4,939 was spent on general assistance this year. So I set down a budget of 5,000 for 2026.
That'll come up at the next meeting as well.
Okay, yeah. Should have been under today, but
That's all right.
okay,
All right.
come back to that.
Yeah, we can pull that. Any other comments, questions on public safety section? Right, so I guess we'll head into public works, so roads.
Would be, I believe, page 11.
11.
The roads is the largest part of our budget. Number one. It is huge. It's really the only thing that we've got that we should be concentrating on, frankly, because they are atrocious.
And so there have been several changes to this page. Let me see.
Compared to the last time.
Yes, let's see if I included those. Those have already actually been updated today. So I met with some of the previous roads committee members today. And what we changed was under roadside mowing, I had it originally at 7,300, we bumped it up to 7,500. The village snow removal, that was actually suggested to move down to 0. And so that's talking about specifically the sidewalks down on Main Street.
Why would that go to 0? I mean, I've
It would-
seen somebody out there.
I think historically, it used to fall on the owners of the businesses or homes that were in front of it. And so they were expected to maintain it. And then it was only, I think, put in as a budget line for the holiday stroll. And then it's now become just a consistent contract to have that removed. And so there was the discussion about having that removed. It's a $6,000 line item that could be brought down to 0. It's a contracted,
Is the select board considered that yet?
not yet.
Okay.
It was just the roads committee today.
Shannon, would that get rid of clearing the path on both sides of the bridge across the mill pond and clearing the bridge?
I
Both
believe,
sides of the path are plowed by this plowing contractor.
Yeah.
The actual road parts plowed by the contractor typically.
I know,
And it was understood that the landowner was doing the bridge anyway.
what landowner does the bridge? Actually, I did the bridge for a while until the town started doing it, but what landowner, who owns the bridge as far as the
The
landowner?
town owns
The town.
the,
Okay, so,
the contractor with the contract said, don't do it because somebody else does it.
okay, but I haven't done it in a while, and I don't plan on taking that back.
Dean's been doing
But-
it this year. What he said,
Oh, he asked this year?
what I was told.
contracted out
It was, yeah, it was contracted out.
for one more year, it's contracted too, but it was just if they would like to get out of that contract and drop it down to zero as a cost savings to the town.
But I'm a little confused.
As long as I can make it across the bridge to the old man's breakfast on Wednesday.
You can show it once a week.
Drive like the rest of it.
A lot of people that use that bridge for
Yeah.
walking and transportation.
I don't go downtown a lot, so I don't know I don't know how much traffic there is, just pedestrian traffic, like from the post office over towards the library where the pathways are. Maybe you guys have a lot more.
There's a lot.
Dog walkers.
Oh, yeah.
People that walk to the library, walk to the post office, and that section that is, to me, the most dangerous is where it's getting close to Old Winthrop Road and there's no shoulder. So the cars are right up against the curb there.
Mhm.
So if it's not plowed and people can't get onto the sidewalk, they're walking in the road.
Wow. Yeah, so that's probably something the select board will need to take up, whether or not they wanna.
Is there a
Keep funding that.
recommendation from the budget committee? Because there will be both, I think, budget committee recommendation as well as select board
Oh, okay.
recommendation.
Usually it works the other way around. We
Yeah.
react to their recommendation.
And we're allowed to give.
We are allowed.
We are allowed
to give-
Preemptive if we
To
want.
give advice, I would be reluctant to go to zero. And I don't know how we would,
Well, I know a
don't
couple of years
know.
ago, there was somebody that slipped on the ice and broke their shoulder, so.
Oh.
Mm. But it might have been more in the post office parking lot.
Yeah, I would be concerned about the town's liability. If we have sidewalks and we're not maintaining them, and someone is walking on 133 because the sidewalk isn't plowed, is the town gonna be liable?
Mhm.
I don't think we are, but I still don't think we should have our people getting run over by cars
No.
on 133.
even if.
I don't think liability should be the driving factor on making safe passage for the residents.
Do we want to make a recommendation to the town to keep the funding on that line? Can we do that?
I think,
Or at least reduce it maybe if, this came by the contractor that had the contract saying, it's not, you're giving me money for nothing, really.
I think it's $1,000 a month
Maybe
Oh,
it's
Not based on.
for 6 months.
for 6 months.
Yeah, so that's where you get the $1,000 a month to maintain the sidewalks.
Especially
the winter.
Exactly. But
but I mean,
I'm just
Could there
saying
be a
that
difference?
there may be,
couldn't there be a different kind of contract? I mean, we pay some people for plowing a driveway and. But you pay them on the number of times they plow the driveway rather than,
we're doing a will call basis.
Well, I guess when you're looking at the budget for the town, you're trying to look at things that you can count on, and it's hard to know how many storms there are, so I think that's why they've kind of had the.
yeah, but I think, Mark there's a threshold at which he will. Fire up the plows and go out,
Mhm.
and you don't get to 2 inches or whatever the number is, then he doesn't go out.
Right, but I think that when they're looking at, how many storms will they be, are they going to
Yeah.
they're gonna budget for 12 storms or 10 storms, a certain amount of money per storm, probably. That's how they're maybe looking at it. Then the town office is then paying based on a contract as opposed to paying on an invoice.
Mhm.
So adds a little bit different to the work in the.
Was the snow actually cleared from these areas this year?
Yes,
Yes.
Yeah.
And Mark cleared it?
Mhm.
yes,
Okay. So if you take the money out, they won't be cleared next year.
that would be correct.
Correct.
Okay.
Mhm.
Okay. So we need to
Or
figure
you
out if
reduce
that's
the
what we
money and
wanna
they
do.
get cleared half as much.
Well, I mean, I think part of it is also the sanding, right? So if you have a lot of ice
Mhm.
and then you've had some rain,
Salt and sand, yeah.
salt and sanding it so that people aren't going
I
to.
guess what we're getting at is something we never did. Historically, we've never done it until the stroll came. And now we've done it for the last, 4 or 5 years. That was the angle that I looked at. And, I mean, you're trying to balance out wise spending and, or not, and making sure you're taking into the needs of all citizens of the town. And when a recommendation comes from a contractor that actually has the contract, says no, that kind of raises a flag. But yes,
There is a benefit to consider about being a walking friendly community.
Mhm.
There is a trend towards that being a desirable characteristic for communities to be walking friendly, or the walkability index. And to have the sidewalks being cleared and ice-free is a desirable characteristic that should be considered in this decision.
and unfortunately, our sidewalks go to nowhere.
Well.
And they're
but they-
actually blowing the snow to nowhere. It's like,
There
wow,
are
this is a
limited-
waste.
It's true, there are a limited number of sidewalks, but our village center does have a number of sidewalks
there's-
that
there's a-
does allow
There's a
the
few.
transmissibility of people within the village center, and so it does permit that.
And it's not just people who live in the village that make use of that.
That's
It's-
correct.
There are a lot of people
That's
who
correct.
drive to somewhere in town and park and
And
walk
walk.
in the village.
That's
Exactly.
exactly correct.
And I can see it looks like we started back in fiscal year 1920.
It was
19 and
2020,
Yeah.
Yep.
So it's
been a
been
few.
doing it for.
And it's
a few
gone
years.
from where to where?
1,500 was what it was approved, and then it went up to 3,000, and then it went up to 6,000.
Can
I
we
think I remember
say
the
4,000? Just to,
Well, that's gonna depend on the contract,
It's gonna
because
depend-
now you're
right.
increasing that amount for the contractor.
Yep.
Who's currently contracted at that rate for another year.
he's gonna give you a break.
Oh,
It would either be, I'd say, continuing it at 6,000 for another year, or either raising it or dropping it entirely.
We're paying for a full 6 months, November through April.
Yes. And that's for plowing and for
Right.
any kind of,
And I'm not sure if the same vendor or contractor has done it the whole time.
No, I'm pretty sure it
Yeah.
hasn't been.
Hasn't, no,
Right.
it's been bumped around.
Yeah, and it looks like maybe road plowing, the original was 177,399, and that's come down to 168,960, so in kind of that contractual line. It's come down about
Well, the road
15,000.
plowing is a bid. That was
Yeah.
totally on a bid basis.
Oh, I
I'm just
see.
wondering if it would be, if we would save ourselves anything if we cut it to 5 months and said mid-November to mid-April.
the,
So
The-
flip
the way-
and fall on a big storm next week.
the way that it works is they bid for the year.
Right.
And if it doesn't snow, they do well. If it snows a lot, they don't do well. But the payment schedule is spread out over
Mhm.
6 months. So it isn't that if it snows in April, if it gets more than 2 inches of snow in April, they're gonna have to come out. If it doesn't, they don't. But all it is the annual fee is paid in 6 monthly payments. So we're not really paying for April snow removal.
Right.
We're
Right,
paying
right.
1/6 of the annual
No,
snow
that,
removal.
what I was suggesting was if the contractor were bidding for a 5-month
Yeah.
period rather than a 6-month period, he wasn't obligated in those shoulder weeks.
Mhm.
Would it be
Yeah,
any
for,
less?
for the sidewalks.
Right.
Sure, or,
but I
Well-
guess what Henry's saying is, it's for the whole year. So if it snows in October,
You're still there.
Yeah.
But you're now saying it's only 5 months starting in November, so the sidewalk's not getting shoveled in October.
Shannon, I wonder if there's somebody that might be willing to do that for us cheaper on some basis. Well, we got a contract with Markville for the next year,
We
correct?
do,
That's a separate contract from the road plow.
it is.
Mhm.
I don't know what it says. So.
One other thing that is sort of a liability possibly is the footbridge where it slants down on either edge, it gets icy. And in the past, there have been little non-stick things so that you have a little traction grips put there. Otherwise, you could just go right up from underneath you and people fall and hurt
Is that
themselves.
summer or winter time?
Pardon?
Summer grip, like in the summertime?
It's
Or,
all year round. It's like it almost feels like sandpaper, heavy
Right.
duty sandpaper that's
Strips.
applied to the bottom.
and that
of
doesn't
the
get
footbridge.
iced over or anything in the winter time?
It makes a little more traction.
Yeah,
Okay.
Otherwise, it's just really slick and
Okay.
so that's been done, but it's been done because people called and said, could you do this?
So do we have a recommendation of recommending to the select board a dollar amount to put in that line?
Well, are we committed by contract for another year? Or-
We are,
We are,
Yeah,
okay,
So that's a no.
if you have a contract, I think you probably need to put in whatever the contract requires you to put in.
You have to con-
And then
for
if-
next year too, that one?
for 2026, we do, yes,
Really?
yes, but
And
he
he's
was
the one-
saying,
And he wanted to fund his own contract.
yes,
Oh.
oh,
there's
so
your
then,
sign.
so then we do need to put an amount back in there.
I can go back and talk with him, but as of right now, he has a
Uh-huh.
contract. I think that he was hoping to get out of it and also the hopes of saving the cost savings for the town.
Oh, okay. So, so he's contracted to do it right now,
Mhm.
okay. And is that but that contract is not listed on here,
It's still under the contractual section,
okay,
at 6,000.
oh. I didn't see
Page
it.
11, section 1090385, that's for the village snow removal.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, mine,
So it should show 6,000. Oh, I was saying today it got bumped down to 0,
yeah,
but if you want to keep it at 6,000.
okay. Any other questions on the contractual piece of
We
the,
still owe him 2 more thousand
roads.
then, right, this year?
For
We
this year,
spent
yes,
4.
we still have the April warrant
Mhm.
for the snow that we've got coming down right now.
Right.
Yeah.
But he
Uh,
doesn't do it.
or does he have to have so many inches?
Certain number of inches, I think.
Mhm.
He, like, a year or two ago, he was saying, I hope we don't get an inch. I hope we don't get an inch.
But moving down, we can go down to the brush and tree removal. That got bumped up today from 15,000 up to 30,000, up from 25,000 last year.
It went from 25 to 30, not
Yes.
15. Yeah,
Correct. I had put in there 15 and decreased
Okay,
it.
got
The
Okay,
roads committee bumped it up to 30. Calcium chloride, bumped that from last year's budget, 14,000 up to 16,230. And that was calculating the application of 2 applications of calcium chloride. And that is to help reduce dust on roads.
Dirt.
I don't see any expenses year to date in this fiscal year. Is it something that doesn't?
It's more, I would say, in the summertime, when dust and everything's kicking up on roads. If it's a really dry summer, then you can put that down right after, I think, a rainstorm. Because if you put it down before a rainstorm and it rains, it'll wash off. But after a rainstorm, that's when you'd want to put it down and it sticks and it holds all the dust down.
So I'm seeing on this budget page that we have 0
Right,
under,
we haven't spent any this year yet because
Correct.
it's just dirt
This
roads
is
haven't- we
The
have to-
year-to-date expenses under
Right.
twenty
So
twenty-five.
between now and July, we'll spend it.
oh, I was thinking when it was really dusty.
Dusty, yeah.
So we didn't spend any from July last summer.
Last year was a good year. It rained, it was sunny, it rained, it was sunny, didn't need to spend any.
Right.
Okay,
So in the time maybe after or the year before was 5,800. That was for one application. And so we're budgeting for two applications in here because it's gone up to about $8,100 per application.
Okay.
And then down to line 2546, winter salt, that, they bumped that from 22,605 last year up to 25,000. Just considering, any kinds of tariffs that might come out, it could be a foreign, I think there was discussion about it being a foreign commodity of where it comes in at Searsport. And so just looking to see if there's any, increased costs, so we just jumped that up to 25,000. Winter sand, that was budgeted last year at 40,689, just jumped that up to 42,723.
Is it,
Shannon, I think maybe that's a little too high, and I may not have. Okay, 40,689 was, last year was incorrect. That goes back to the error in the contract and the overpayments that the town made.
Okay.
And the correct amount for last year was 35,825. The correct amount for this year really can't be determined until November, because the contract says it's adjusted in November based on the October CPI numbers.
Yeah.
But 5% is a good guess. And 5% would be 35,516.99.
Okay.
So the 5%, instead of being on the 25 budget of 4689, would be on the 25 actual of 33,825, because that's what the budget should have said last year.
Okay. So 35,516, is that what the
And-
budget committee?
And that's a guess. That's allowing 5%, which is probably too high. But who knows what's gonna happen? If if diesel goes up to $4.50 a gallon, the 5% might be too low.
And this is showing a 5% increase, but you're
But
saying
it's-
it's a
it's on the
5% on a
bottom.
higher number.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
showing 5% on the number that was budgeted last year, but the number that was budgeted last year was incorrect under the contract.
Too high, okay.
The new number you have is
Is that
35.
contract?
35,516.99.
Is it a contracted amount or?
Yes, it
So,
is.
yeah.
That was
It
it.
is, it's part of the snowplow contract. He's
Yeah.
got plowing and he's got sand.
So that number should be right in the contract, correct?
It's in the
But it's indexed.
You should be, you
Oh,
mean,
then
should
you
be
add the
correct,
index.
should be correct in the contract? Yes, yes.
Okay. So you want to make a motion for what? 35?
516?
35, say 517. It's a guess.
517.
We don't want to put that, we don't want to put the 99 cents.
That's what a budget is, right?
No, no.
Do we need a motion and a vote on this? Is that what we need, or are we just?
I don't think we need to
Well, I don't
vote
think we
on
need
the
to have that.
individual line item, but I think we have a consensus of the committee. It's.
Yeah, I think that's,
Down for grading, that just went from 20,000 up to 22,000. That's line item 2570. And then I was explained that for the ditching, that's kind of a catch-all. So when you start looking at any kind of repairs or culverts, I get calls for culverts that might be blocked up. If I have to call somebody to go out and respond to any of that, that falls under the ditching. So that's also why that is at 50,000. Same as the last 2 years.
so for the line for 2555 crack sealing, that's the first time I've seen a dollar amount in there for a while. Is that
Ooh,
something that's new?
I put that in there, but we didn't talk about that today.
Mhm.
When you put in,
No, okay, I just figured for any kind of cracks, it's always good. So, okay, so we'll just take that out.
Okay.
Besides that, you just found $4,000.
no,
Now we can.
we are, there's your.
Goes back into your village snow removal. Okay,
And I noticed under 2530 for signs, that we've, when I look back in 23, we had 2,000, we spent 1921. We budgeted in 24 for 2,000, we didn't have any. We budgeted 2,025, looks like we have about $500.
Yeah.
Do we think that the 2,000 is a good figure for that, or?
I think you never know.
uh,
The scary one,
Signs?
yeah. How many get stolen?
I've got one in my office right now. And I have to go, there is a sign over at Kings Highway that's over, so that'll fall under this
Right.
year to get that
Okay.
put back up. And I think another Berry Road and Kings Highway sign as well.
Okay. And then for the road sweeping, is that done by contract as well?
So that is done by contract, and there is some discussion as to whether or not we should continue to do that. Most of Route 133 is covered by the DOT. And so as far as sweeping, there's not a lot of other places, I guess, that would want to be swept unless there were certain requests for.
I think it makes a huge difference when.
So we just left
you've
it
got a lot of
in there.
walkers. Okay.
Well, does it though?
But-
Because the walkers are on 133.
For
Primarily,
the sidewalks.
the sidewalk, they don't sweep the sidewalk.
Well, that's what I'm saying. They're
They're
on the
not, they're not
sidewalks.
going to sweep the sidewalk. They're, all right, they're on the sidewalk.
They do a lot of Old Winthrop Road.
They do
We're
a lot
gonna
of
be paving that
Road
though, so
roads.
we're gonna get free sweeping anyway.
Yeah.
I'm thinking for this year. The other thing is, we could say we'll cut the sweeping, but I'm sure the sweeper's gonna say, we have a flat rate to come out.
That's what I remember.
They're gonna
Having a
charge
flat
X
rate.
amount just to come to town.
Yeah.
Mhm.
So for this year, just in the conversation for your awareness, what we were discussing for road paving included Old Winthrop Road, Pond Road, Richmond Mills for an overlay, Green Tree Road, Strickland Road, and Bessie Road for reclaim and binder, and then Innis Ridge Road also for overlay for this year.
Would you read that once again, Old
Yeah.
Winthrop?
Old Winthrop Road, Pond Road, and Richmond Mills Road. I believe they were shimmed previously. We're looking at doing an overlay. And then Green True Road, Strickland Road, and Bessie Road, we're looking to do a reclaim and binder. And then Innis Ridge Road, also an overlay for that.
I just had a question, on Old Winthrop Road, will that be sanded? Will the sand be cleared, swept?
That's part of
Yeah.
the contract, and so we're working on a request for proposals at the moment. And so that would include any kind of cleanup of the road, and that's where we're talking about the sweeping. Those roads would get swept and cleaned and prepared to get paved. And so then after that, they should be all clean and new. So that's where we were also discussing the sweeping this year. Does that road need to get swept if it's already gonna be swept by a contractor?
And what portion of Old Winthrop Road was
The
gonna
one
be?
we shimmed from 133 to just beyond Mercer Heights. The shim part,
Oh, okay,
because that was a base shim and this is surface.
got it. All right. Do we have any more questions?
Did we wanna
about-
just lop that off for this year? The 4,500 for sweeping, whereas the bulk of our roads, we're gonna sweep when we pave them.
I just had a question on that, the time wise, I mean, the sand is there now and the walking on Old Winthrop Road is pretty bad. When do we have a date? I mean, the paving usually doesn't start until closer to summer, very late spring.
Well, your problem's not gonna be solved by paving, I don't think, is it? I mean, Dave, you're gonna pave the streets this summer.
Correct.
They're gonna cover them with sand this winter.
Mhm.
In the spring, which is under the budget we're talking about, no one's gonna take the sand because they're not redoing the roads.
You got me, Henry.
Okay.
Well, we got 33 miles of road, so.
Yeah, but-
We'll find something this week, okay?
But, no, I'm
That
just,
one's
I'm
this
just-
year.
I'm
We're
just
talking about
saying-
2025.
I'm just
The
saying.
paving's
we're
gonna be
talking about
done.
next
This
year.
year.
Yeah,
I'm thinking-
and the sand's gonna be
You're
right,
done,
this is for
then
next
we're
year.
gonna sweep it.
Okay,
I was hoping.
Fix it.
I know.
so the sweeping, that's done between now and,
Typically, you do it before Memorial Day, before the parade.
No, we still, we have that in the budget currently for twenty
You do it this
twenty-five.
year.
Okay.
Correct.
Right,
What we're looking at is budget for 2026,
Yeah.
That's what
for
Henry-
next spring.
Right,
Yeah.
yeah.
so I think.
And
we
I
should
think you
leave it.
gotta leave the 45 because I believe that is
Maybe
like
they'll
the
be-
base amount.
Mhm.
I think,
Right.
something sticks in my mind.
Yeah.
They're only gonna come out for X amount.
That's not gonna happen.
So that may have been why we were doing the intersections and all these other places around town, is that if they were here for X amount, you gotta get all you can out of them, right?
Yeah,
Something to look into, Shannon. That's when you dig back through it.
Okay.
Thank you.
Well, I also think of when people are riding bikes on the side of the road and there's sand.
Safety issue.
Yeah.
We pay to put it on, we pay to take it off.
I actually have a concussion
And,
that
and,
I blamed on
and I
that.
wasn't saying it needs to be swept, I was just saying
I
the
know,
road
I
is,
know.
we're gonna fix it.
I know.
Okay, so let's see, I think we've gone through any other comments on roads that we need to address today? Okay, I know my goal is to not try to go past 8. But let's see, under Public Works, we have the transfer station and landfill, so that's page 12, I believe. And
goodness.
So those numbers
You
did get
had that- you
updated. And you do have attachments that go with that as well, and that was the print off from Reedfield. As far as our contract and all of their operating expenses, but just looking at that, we're actually going down. From what I had assumed and budgeted for this year.
Good.
But last year we had 106.88 budgeted for transfer station operations, and they came back to us with 103.720 for 2026. And then for their capital investments, we also contribute towards that. Last year it was 10,609. This year it's 10,372.
Mhm.
And so an overall transfer station of 119,092.
Yeah, and then the hazardous waste line is when we participate. And when more towns participate in that, they're able to spread the costs out.
Right.
And it's split in multiple. We pay a portion, but then also we pay based on how much hazardous waste has been brought from our town. That's the forms everybody fills out.
Yeah, and do we know where it's gonna be held this year?
It's probably gonna be held at the transfer station again. It's
Okay.
worked out really well.
It does seem to be climbing, right?
So
It's got a trend, upward trend.
Well,
Is that what it is?
it's actually kind of good because then we know this, the
It's-
stuff
it's
isn't.
trending.
written
No,
in
what I'm
people's
saying is they're
basements.
telling us what it, that's not us putting it in, they're telling us is what happened.
I think that I have that. I tried to put in all the numbers that I had from
Mhm.
them.
Good.
And I think that they have a day set for their hazardous waste.
Yeah. she told me.
I just don't have that on me, but I have it, I believe, in the office. So.
Oh, great.
So, and that's something citizens usually have to
The sign
sign
up,
up ahead of
yeah,
time.
for the town office.
There were a couple of times when we went all the way to Augusta with our stuff.
Took a long time. They had,
Yeah.
I remember winding around some blocks.
Hmm.
Okay. Let's see, we have land and buildings, which,
Excuse me. So, all of these, aside from the maintenance and repairs,
which,
page
sorry.
16.
Page
16, yeah.
So, I would say that most of these expenses are electricity costs. You'll see that they've gone up over the years, significantly. I mean, maybe only $25 for the schoolhouse or $38 for the North, Wayne building. But those are just basic electricity costs, and there's nothing really running in them. It's just a standard central main power bill.
Mhm.
Maintenance and repairs, I think that there's been some discussion and some requests to repeat the old school building at some point. Might not be this year, but it might be a nice thing to do. Speaking of which, actually, a little segue real quick is, I mentioned at the last select board meeting, and I'd like to get back to the Marina Cook School. If there's any small projects that we want to have done, the day of caring as well, we could have students come out if there's any painting or anything that we want to have done. We just have to
Sleep in the street.
get them the, yeah. Well, if we can give them some brooms, they can go out and brush off the sidewalks or something.
Yeah, great list of items.
Yeah, United Way provides a lot of the tools for them.
Mhm.
I think if there's any kind of mulching or any kind of painting, we just provide the mulch or the paint. But the tools and things are usually provided by United Way. So while we're on this, if there's anything that we'd like to see coming up, that will be, I think it's May 13th or May 6th. It's one of those 2
Okay.
days. It's on a Tuesday, I believe. But while we go through this, other than that, I think I kind of just went off of previous years and just did some minor increments,
Mhm.
mental changes
And contractual.
and contractual.
All right, do we want to hit that last point on conservation and parks? And then I know I had added to my agenda the intergovernmental, but on your agenda, you had put that off, so we can,
Yeah.
put that for the next
I mean,
meeting.
for the intergovernmental, I don't have those pages printed off,
Oh,
but
yeah.
that's really looking at the school RSU.
Mhm.
And so I just did the 5.35% increase of what they've already projected, minus that cost for the not Blue Cross Blue Shield, but Anthem.
Anthem.
So for their insurance, so right now, the 5.35% increase that they were projecting without those insurance costs, last year they were budgeted at $2,794,985. This year, for the upcoming year, they're budgeting for us $2,944,538. Like I said, 5.35% increase.
And that's over their entire budget.
Yes.
Yeah, so we
Yeah.
still need to figure out
Oh.
what part's gonna,
That's the Wayne allocation. right
that's the
there.
Wayne allocation,
Correct.
okay.
That's the same as what we talked about before, wasn't it? Yeah, 5.35,
Yeah.
right?
Yep, that's,
Hasn't
yeah,
changed.
correct. They had a
Okay.
meeting,
Hmm.
with the budget committee on March 26th, and then they had one with the overall school board on April 2nd, but that was just at the end, I think, of last week.
Mhm.
I haven't followed up with that yet.
While we're off topic, in the paper, the county they said 9%, 9.8, but they were gonna charge the towns 13 point something.
Yeah,
Yeah. that's-
Can we get from them a reasoning? I mean, that's like,
I believe it has to do with the, salaries and the union wages that they were negotiating with the county jail officers.
if they had a
Mm.
9.8 increase, why aren't we just having a 9.8? Why are we having more?
It's an appropriation, and so
Okay.
it's broken down by towns and so it's based off of, I think, the state appropriation for towns.
Mhm.
And so, that's right now, they had a 9% increase, and so in the overall budget, which you don't have the printout, I put it in for it initially, I just kept the same thing as 2025 at 346,130. But it's currently at 387,980 is what the Kennebec County has it budgeted for us at 12.1%. I raised that to 13%, and that would put us at 391,127.
You think it's gonna come in higher?
I mean, if they're projecting right now that it's gonna come in higher than what they had budgeted, they had budgeted just for the town of Wayne individually 12.1%, so just
Oh,
going up to 13 to be on the safe
didn't
side
Lloyd
right now.
say it was gonna be under 10
I
and
thought so.
Yeah, I thought so too.
Ah,
Yeah.
Mhm.
And then the other intergovernmental agency is Policy Watershed District, and so they're a 4% increase, and so we're looking at 3,575 for them. I don't have the updated info for the overlay yet.
Well, we still had one more section under Public Works. I think we had the conservation and parks. Are we doing that today too?
Do I have that page in here?
I didn't
see.
I didn't see it in here, so that might be an area that we
Okay.
can push on to the
Yeah.
next meeting too.
So then I would look at, so next meeting, capital reserves, outside agencies, so that might be any of
Mhm.
those, recreation, social services, anything I missed. Going back to GIS again, and then general administration again, and getting those updated numbers, in addition to the revenues. So our assessor comes in once a month, and so hopefully he'll be here by the time we have our next meeting, and I can get some of those updated revenues, and then we can start comparing the revenues with the expenses and really see if they're offsetting each other, and hopefully it is.
Has the select board been updated on the LD 609?
Not yet.
Okay, so there's the possibility of having to have how would you describe it? It was
So the state budget,
yeah,
I did forward an email to them that did come
Okay.
through, the Maine Municipal Association did send one out and I forwarded it to them. And it's just regarding the state's municipal budget. There was a petition that was put through. So if that petition collects enough signatures, then it will go onto a November ballot. If it does go onto a November ballot and they collect enough of those signatures, then it will pause state funding. That includes anything K through 12, our state revenue shares. And so that will be held off until November. And in the meantime, the towns will have to cover down on that.
yeah. So that definitely will,
Wow.
if it passes, it will have a
Cash flow.
cash
It's
flow.
gonna be a cash flow crunch, but, we looked into the line of credit last time, and we authorized the board that they could borrow on short-term debt, remember?
Yes, but I don't know, have they, has the,
We haven't borrowed, but we have the ability. if we
you have the
need to.
ability to borrow.
I don't see conservation and parks anywhere in there.
No, we,
It's not a fact.
But no,
It's not there,
no, but
we're
I meant the main,
overall.
I got the main budgets.
is it really,
I don't think it's a.
is it
separate-
recreation?
Oh, it might be hiding under, okay, recreation?
Page 14?
I think we labeled it recreation.
Oh, really?
I think
Instead of,
so.
Yeah, conservation
Conservation.
parks is now recreation, right?
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
oh, okay,
Let's change it right here.
Yeah,
I will. Okay, recreation.
Okay, good.
And so was that in here?
Move that off there. That's
so
page 14.
recreation.
Oh, page 14. Is that anything that you folks want to cover tonight, or is you want to put that on the next meeting?
I mean, all of these have been submitted and I have all of the documents from all of them. Hot Meal Kitchen, I had reached out to. They didn't get their paper in early enough, but then I called them and they said that they ended up getting some funding, although they were originally funded by United Way. They lost that funding, but someone else came in and helped them. Life Flight, I never received, oh, excuse me, I have a 565 down for them. The Rural Community Action Program is 5,000. No change. Senior Spectrum, 1,160, so just up $60, $55. No change in hospice, no change in the family violence, no change in main public broadcasting, or Kennebec Valley Behavioral Health, or the Children's Center, or Red Cross. All of those are pretty much, I believe, the same.
Okay. All right, so that was Department 111.
Yes.
And was there anything that we wanted to cover under Department 112, the recreation?
So I think,
Just note, Shannon, it looks like there's an error under the lab operation expenses. We did budget 4,300 last year.
oh. I'll have to
We
look into
expended
that,
it, so.
because this is what was printed off from Trio
Yeah.
software, so I'll go in and take a look.
As it continues across, right?
Yeah,
Okay.
right there. It would have been a 42.
Okay. So we do have it.
Hmm.
And then I don't have anything significant to report on recreation other than what we've already discussed as far as the lab or the mowing contracts.
Mhm.
I figured the social services, community services, I didn't know if those would have gone under health and human services, they probably could have. But no changes for any of those. Except for Friends of the Cobussy Watershed, you heard from Jennifer Peasnell earlier. And Memorial Day Committee hasn't occurred yet, so that's why there's a 0 year to date that's coming up. And that has been posted on the town's website.
Saw that?
Yeah. Parade coming down through town, I think at 11 o'clock.
Do we also get sheriff support for that as well?
It's on the list.
It's on the list.
Okay. And no change to any of the others.
Shannon, is the increase on this health insurance only 2.2%? And is that,
I don't think I think I just put that in. Just as a guess, honestly, I haven't calculated that.
Mhm.
but then what, down below the little note that says 9% increase for all active health plans?
So that was just in general. Oh, I think those were notes that I had in here previously that I put into Trio and then I went back and deleted them so it didn't confuse anybody, except I think I left that one in there. That was just as of 2025, there was a 9% increase in the main employees health trust. And that will go up next January, probably, but they won't have that for us until November.
But so our January, our rates that we were paying starting January of this year, is it 15,908 per employee or is it higher than that?
I'd have to check on that since we're at 12,000. I'll have to check on it. I think
Any other comments under Public Works, Recreation? So we're gonna have another meeting, right, in 2
April
weeks, so
22nd.
April 22nd, still here at 6:30. And in that area, we, at that time, will probably expand a little bit of our questions for the old business.
Yeah.
And we'll look at a couple other areas, especially the capital reserve, and we pretty much just went over outside agencies, but we'll look at those.
Okay.
Will it be at that one, do you think, folks, that will be able to vote at that time on these different sections, or you think that we're gonna need to have another meeting to
We wait until we see what happens.
make sure we
then.
have all that? Okay,
Check.
so,
We need to get some information in.
Yeah.
Concrete from the county, concrete from the school, or
Yeah.
close as we can.
Yeah.
And then
please
let-
follow up with me, at the end of this next week or so.
yes,
Um,
absolutely.
let's make sure that I've got all those answers for you. All right,
Make a motion, we adjourn.
Can I will be away, and I may be able to Zoom,
Okay,
but I may not be.
okay.
When to see my aunt Emily. We just turned or will be turning 96.
Great. Do I have a second to adjourn? Okay.
Thank you.
sure. And I hope everybody has a good night.
I carefully.
Good.